and welcome for the latest episode of My Life as a Critic. I am professional film critic Sean Patrick, and today we're looking at a movie that came out in 1989. I was not a film critic at that time. I wrote this review in 2002, I believe, and I'm not sure about this. It could have just been a random decision on my part, but I believe a special edition DVD was released that year, which led me to write about this movie. I've always been a big fan of Heathers. It's the kind of misanthropic humor that has kind of defined my life. Not that the movie itself did, although I'm sure there was a certain influence from this film that carried over to my own personality. This, along with things like Army of Darkness, Evil Dead, definitely had an early influence on me and kind of helped shape my idea of humor. That and, a consistent cloud of anxiety and light depression, I guess, that seems to accompany those of us with the more misanthropic spirit. But that's not what this is about. This is what happens when you free associate. But I reviewed the film back in 2002. I've always been a big fan, and I was curious, I guess, that now how the movie would play after I've been away from it a while, because it's been a while since I've watched it. I've watched it a lot over the years, but it's been a while since I've actually watched it, and I've only written about it this one time, back in 2002 for Bickit.com. That's BIKKIT.com. And I guess I kind of want to remember what I wrote about it and then take another look at the movie and see how it feels now, because times have definitely changed. I know I changed. 2002 me and 2016 me are not really the same person. I guess you could probably say that about yourself or really anybody, but there were a lot of significant changes, upheavals over that time, and I'm curious to see if any of the cultural shifts or personal shifts have changed my perspective on this movie. I am maybe less misanthropic today than I was then. I was certainly heavily misanthropic when I was first exposed to Heathers, and in the time that I certainly was wrote the review that I'm going to read to you in a moment. I was certainly a more misanthropic, hate the world kind of thing. Obviously, that leads me, of course, to that Greenberg moment back in 2010, where I kind of realized just how much I hated the world and decided that was not making me happy. As much as satisfaction as you can get from the cathartic hatred of everything, it's in the end, it's lonely and not pleasant. You don't have a lot of friends. Although, really, I had more friends then than I do now. Maybe my friends just find me less entertaining now. I don't know. But anyway, I've changed a lot. I'm not saying I'm a sunny personality by any stretch, but I'm much happier as a person. I'm much less hateful toward all of humanity. Maybe that's just maturity. I don't know. Maybe it's turning 40. You just kind of you realize just what a waste of time it is to be so filled with hate. So let's see if this new perspective has changed this movie for me. Let's read the 2002 review. In the late 1980s, as the John Hughes boom began to wane, a film came along that exploded the teen movie genre and changed the way teen movies are seen forever. With its twisted violence and sick humor, Heathers was a kick in the ass to any and all teen movies before. The film stars Winona Ryder as Veronica, a member of the popular clique in her school, the Heathers, named for the other three girls whose names were actually Heather. Veronica, being the only member of the clique not named Heather, as I already mentioned, is a bit of an outcast, leaving one to wonder why she's even in the group, a question she often asks herself. Veronica goes through the motions of watching her friends play cruel tricks on classmates, that is, until she meets J.D., played by Christian Slater. J.D. is a misanthropic outcast with an intense dislike of the Heathers. Veronica falls for J.D., and the two set about avenging the misdeeds. Veronica's idea of vengeance is slightly different than J.D.'s, though. With Heather 1, played by Kim Walker, Veronica just thinks they're going to make her sick with a combination of milk and orange juice. J.D., however, wants to use Drano and various other household items. After eliminating Heather 1, Veronica and J.D. make Heather 1's death look like a suicide. Just how trendy are the Heathers? Well, Heather 1's suicide makes the uber bitch into a saint and makes suicide another trendy teen accessory. Veronica is horrified by what happened, but equally horrified by people's reaction. JD then convinces Veronica another stage suicide, this time two asshole jock football players who are dispatched as if they were in a lover's pact suicide. Once again, the suicides turn the jerks into heroes, and Veronica realizes JD's romantic notion of saving the school from the cliques and jocks is actually a psychotic obsession. Winona Ryder is spectacular in what may be the best role of her career. Her delivery and timing is flawless, not to mention her chemistry with Slater, who also swings for the fences and nails it. Heather's is cynical, ironic, and endlessly quotable. Nowadays, political correctness being what it is, you could never make this movie. Just another reason why I absolutely love this movie. That is my 2002 review of Heathers. Brief, to the point, not too much analysis in there, but plenty of plot description. I don't really tackle any of the issues in the film, but I do appreciate the humor, and my wordplay isn't bad. Let's watch the movie now and see if my perspective on the film, maybe I can give you something a little bit more nuanced now after watching the film again. This movie is sick and twisted and still very, very funny. It really is just very, very funny. It's so incredibly dark and misanthropic and, I mean, downright hateful. But the tone that this film strikes is so unique and so just completely its own. It creates this broad universe for these characters to exist within, where with these all these clueless parents and adults and kids who are trying to be more sophisticated than they are, but everything is just so broad and heightened to a point that it kind of removes you that extra step that you need to be removed from the violence of the film and the ugliness of the movie. There is certainly some ugliness to this movie. I mean, they are killing people. There's no two ways about it. These are two characters who are committing murder, and they're the heroes of the film. Well, Veronica is anyway. JD obviously will reveal himself to be much more villainous than she is, but I mean, you do have to deal with the fact that Veronica does shoot one of the jocks. She does do that, and she's not going to be punished for it. She, in fact, fully gets away with it, and we're all pretty well okay with that. She shoots Kurt and Ram. Kurt and Ram are interesting characters to me, and they exist in a unique place because in terms of our modern culture, what takes place with those two characters is it controversial? Kind of, I guess. I guess it's something about perspective. I guess the idea I'm trying to come to about this scene and about the series of scenes is that JD and Veronica set up a situation where Kurt and Ram are drawn out to a clearing. They strip themselves naked, thinking that they're going to have sex with Veronica. Then, unbeknownst to Veronica, they're to be shot. Now, Veronica thinks that JD has some gigged bullets that he's going to use and not actually, they're not actually going to be hurt by being shot. Of course, she kind of buys into something that she kind of knew wasn't true. So obviously JD comes out and shoots Ram. Then she ends up shooting Kurt after he had tried to flee, and the suicide pact that they came up with helps them get away with it. So that leaving everybody to believe that these two boorish football players with zero depth to much of their life beyond just getting laid and getting drunk were actually secretly gay lovers. And the idea is to humiliate them. Now, that is where you get into some of the more edgier humor of this notion. I mean, obviously the murder is pretty much, pretty edgy itself, and the faking it and pretending it's a suicide. What am I getting at here? I mean, in this day and age, to say that someone would be humiliated by being revealed to be gay is certainly incorrect. That is not a humiliating thing. And to pretend that that would be humiliating, I guess it would. I mean, from the perspective of those two characters, they would be humiliated by that because they're homophobic. The two characters, Ram and Kurt, are unquestionably homophobic characters. So to be seen as being gay would definitely humiliate them. But there's something weird about calling that a punishment. I don't know. Something about it is bothering me, and I can't quite get to it. That said, coming out of that scene, we have the funeral scene, and where Kurt's father gets up and delivers a speech, and he's talking about his son, and he comes to the end of the speech and says, "I love my dead gay son," and it's delivered in kind of a broad fashion, and it's preceded by another line talking about how he would have accepted. He claims he would have accepted him had he known he was gay while he was alive, and then he says how much he loves him now, even knowing that he's dead, and believing that he's gay. He still says he loves him, and the follow up to that is JD and Veronica. JD cracking that how much would he love him? How much would he love him if he were gay and had a pulse? And which makes Veronica laugh, even then as she is quickly shamed after that. But I don't know what the scene. Where am I going with this? I'm not sure. I'm trying to come to terms with how the scene plays out and whether or not the scene itself is homophobic or is it just edgy. Part of me wants to say that it is the joke in and of itself is plainly homophobic. And another part of me says it's just them being edgy and having a joke at the expense of two homophobic characters. I'm overthinking this by a lot, but it has been on my mind as I was leading up to watching the movie and coming out of the movie, and I think it's a worthy topic of discussion. That said, putting that scene aside, it is a funny scene. It really is. The way it plays out, and especially the funeral and the father, everything about it is very funny. And the thing about it is that it's a very heightened sort of humor. Michael Lehman, the director, creates this very broad universe in which the characters are all a little bit clueless except for Veronica, except for JD to a point, although again, he's a psycho. Then there's Martha Dumpster, who's a very sad character, a picked on character, but she's got a real soul to her, regardless of that. And so you can see there's more to her there. Even one of the Heathers is even actually not that bad. She's actually kind of a sweet character that's revealed just before she thinks about killing herself, and Veronica is there to save her. So the characters here are broad and broadly drawn, and the universe is broadly drawn to give us a bit of a distance from the dark humor of this movie, because again, it is about killing people. It is about killing teenagers specifically. Two teenagers are shot. Another is poisoned. And there are plans to kill the Shannon Doherty character, Heather Duke, as she becomes more popular and becomes more of a bitch. There's plans to kill her that are dark and disturbing and violent, but it is that broadness, that the universe that Michael Lehman creates visually and through dialogue that is kind of, you've got all the parents are these kind of narcotized creatures who don't quite know what to do to influence their children in any way. You've got the teachers who are kind of bumbling more than anything. They want to be helpful. You can sense that there's a want to be helpful, but there's also a narcissistic desire on their part to not merely comfort these teenagers as their friends have been killed or died or committed suicide, I guess is what they believe. But there's this narcissistic idea that they can cure that, and that's picked up by the character of Mrs. Fleming, the teacher who tries to organize the students and uses it an opportunity to build herself up, and Veronica's rejection of her in such biting terms. It's a very funny line from from the teacher, actually, who says, deciding whether or not to kill yourself is the biggest decision a teenager can make. and Veronica just tells her to go fuck herself, basically, and it's just a wonderfully delivered line on both parts and a wonderful scene, but it's also just, it's surreal. The whole movie has a certain surreality, not unlike Evil Dead or Army of Darkness, which are movies that are, granted, those are horror fantasy movies, and they're supposed to be what they are. This movie is a comedy, but a dark comedy, kind of a horror movie in some ways. But it has that kind of surreal, that same surreality that Raimi brought to his films. This broadness that allows you to kind of step back from the horror of what you're seeing. Even though Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 have their moments where they're quite scary, there's a broadness and a surreality that allows you to step away from it, so you're not seeing it from a human perspective. You don't have to feel necessarily sympathetic for the characters. You do, because they're good characters, but you're not fearful for them. You're not worried about them too much, because again, it's a broad, surreal landscape that's been created. A good example would be like a more modern horror films remove that distance by making it seem more realistic. The Conjuring, for example, which is not a movie I like, but they treat those films as if they're real situations, and you have, as a person, as somebody who has empathy for other people, you don't have a distance from it the way you have a distance from it in these characters in this movie, or in, like I said, in Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, that you have an almost ironic distance from these characters that allows you to laugh at it and enjoy the things that are happening to them, as much as these are horrifying things that are happening in the movies. And that's a testament to Michael Lehmann's wonderful direction and the fantastic script, which is, I mean, the quotability of the Heathers script is just endless. I could quote this movie all day, and I think anybody who's a fan of this movie could probably quote it all day, and that's a testament to a movie that has longevity, because it's just really, really smart, and it's just a biting, witty film that is a big middle finger to anybody who thinks that they can tell a teenager how they feel and come up with some kind of solution for whatever it is, this teenage angst that affects so many children. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie in so many ways, and just smart, funny, dark, edgy, pointed, so many great things, and from a filmmaking standpoint, like I said, the universe that Michael Lehmann creates for these characters to exist within, and the script by Daniel Waters that is it's smart to a point that's beyond what you might find anywhere else. It's smart to an unreal degree, but it fits the universe in which these characters exist. So there's a lot of thought that went into every aspect of this movie, and that to me is what makes it such an incredible classic. I love Heathers. If you have not seen Heathers, you need to see Heathers. It is just completely hysterical, and after watching it again, I realize now it's maybe one of my favorite movies of all time. I am professional film critic Sean Patrick, and this is My Life as a Critic, and thank you for listening to this episode. Next episode, I'm not sure yet, working on it. Maybe been eyeing Austin Powers Goldmember. That sounded creepy. Let me find another way to phrase that. Maybe Austin Powers, maybe Sahara with Matthew McConaughey. He's got a new movie coming out, so why not that? Although, if you listen to the View from the Top episode, I did talk a lot about Mike Myers in that episode, and there's kind of a Mike Myers topic that is worth kind of exploring a little more. And then, of course, I will do another fan vote. The last fan vote was great, which led to me watching Constantine and reviewing Constantine again, and then disappointing those who voted for me to watch Constantine by hating the movie. But that's what this is about. It's about exploring my life as a critic and my own writing, and also about having unique and interesting conversations with you. And hopefully you found this conversation unique. Thank you.